Hello y'all and welcome back to another deck tech, this time one of my favorite decks, if not my favorite deck, which is Machine Head. Machine Head is a black and red mid-range deck with a weird name. I will get into why it's called Machine Head in this video as well. And I will also, first of all, just say what is mid-range. To explain mid-range, I found this triangle on Orkehulen.dk, which is a Danish site for old school players mostly, and it has a lot of archetypes, aggro, combo, control in the corners. I have made one which is way more simple here, where you can see aggro, combo, and control, the three main strategies of Magic the Gathering, and in between aggro and control we see mid-range, which basically means that it's a deck that can go aggro, it can go control, sometimes it can even have a combo in it. We'll get onto that in the end of the video, but just to be brief here, it's kind of in the middle, and you can tweak it to be either more aggro or more control, depending on how you like it and how your meta looks like. Basically, mid-range decks wants to drag out the game against fast decks, against aggressive decks, and it wants to disrupt and finish your opponent fast against the control decks. The name of the deck comes from it being resembled by two cards that have robot-like art in them. It's Void and Ursus Rage, back from Invasion, and it was a beater of a deck back then, and I think it still is. The deck uses some of my favorite cards in the Premodern card pool, cards that you can also play in other formats as well. There's a Hypnotic Specter, there's Duress, which is super powerful against many strategies, also playing against some. I have the Rack in this list as well, which is a beater for decks that go too fast. We have Terminate, which is probably the second best removal spell in the format. And speaking of removal, we also have Lightning Bolt, which is very flexible. And we have a Lavamancer here, just to show what the deck is capable of. This particular version uses the Rack a lot, and you need to have your opponent add 0, 1, or 2 cards in hand to deal damage in their upkeep. And to do so, we play several discard spells, one of which is the mentioned Hypnotic Specter, which discards at random if it gets in. It's a little bit vulnerable at 2 toughness. Then we have the Rats, which make them discard in the interface, and the Duress, which makes you able to pick apart a hand. It can be very good against combo decks in particular. We have Funeral Charm, which is flexible, and you can use it as discard. It's an instant, so you can discard in their draw phase, so they don't have anything to play if they're hellbent. And we have Cabal Therapy, which is one of the strongest cards in this deck. And when we feed our opponent's graveyards, it's very important to be able to get rid of the cards that might be problematic being there. Cabal Therapy is one of the most important cards in the deck, as I said, and we have a few combos with it. We have Cabal Therapy on turn 1, followed up by Rats on turn 2, and sacrificing the Rats to flashback the Therapy. You can also flashback a Factory if you see something very dangerous in your opponent's hand, and we use Scryings to feed our hand again when our things hit the yard. As a mid-range deck, we need to clear the board in the early phases of the game. And to do that, we have several cards. Here are the Lightning Bolts, the most flexible, I would say, spell in the deck. It can go face, but usually it's to take out small creatures on turn 1 and 2. It's definitely a must-have in this sort of deck. The next one here are the Terminates. I have settled on 3. These are kill spells without any condition, and it also takes care of Massacre, which sees more play now than it did like a year ago, so definitely a must. You could go up to 4 here. The next one here is the before mentioned Funeral Charm. It has the ability to pump something, so you can use it offensively, but defensively it can take care of Lackey, and it can take care of all the cards in Sly that they are running at the time being. So very flexible as well. Another banger is Lavamancer. We do need cards in the yard, but we do have fetch lands and we do have spells that we cast early on. So this should be able to take care of most goblins. We only play 3 because we don't have that much in our yard compared to Sly. Then we have the Therapy. I know it's not taking care of anything on the board, but if you are playing against a known deck, you can pick apart the most difficult cards to handle, like enchantments, survival, and that should be very good as well. If you're used to the rock kind of strategies with black and green, you're used to much bigger creatures than we have here. These are the ones that we use to finish the game. We have a playset of factories, which are quite strong, and we have the 4 flying specters, which also is card advantage. We have the Ravenous Rats, as Pri mentioned. They can chip in a damage or 2. We have the Grim Lavamancers. They can go face as well as hitting creatures. And then we have the very important Wretch here, the bear with the very important graveyard stopping ability. And that's basically it. You can also vote the face. Playing a mid-range strategy, we need to have some way of getting card advantage. We do that with Spectres, and we also play 3 Skeletal Scryings. You could opt for other cards. There's the Phyrexian Arena, which was what I used to play, but I think too many decks are running main deck removal for enchantments, and running out that one is also better with Dark Ritual strategies, which this deck is not using. The mana base of this deck is fairly simple. We do need colored mana on both turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3. So we play full set of Painlands, full set of fetches on color. We play a filter land, and we play a Seat of Brass, and then 2 basic mountains, because red is mostly the color that we splash. For black, it's the same here, and we then play, instead of 2 basics, we play 7 basic swamps, taking it to 12 red sources and 17 black sources, so we can play the Wretch on time to take care of those graveyard strategies. One thing that I've been asked several times now is, what is this swamp with a lot of signatures? Basically, this is my trophy from Euros 2024, where I got every opponent to sign this one, and there is actually a top 4 finisher on this one. Another thing I need to address before Sideboard is, why do I play with gold bordered cards? Well, because it's the ones I have. I only have 3 Terminate black border. I don't have any Chainer's Edict black border, and my white bordered factories are in my old school deck. Black and red has a lot of options in Sideboard, so here's just what I've went with. Before going into details, here is just a quick rundown of my sideboard. A single Chainer's Edict, a single Smother, one of my only foil cards, a single Terminate here as the 4th one, 4 red blast effects. It should be 2 and 2 instead of 3 and 1, 3 Engineered Plague, and 2 Phyrexian Furnace. We also play with 3 Gloom. That's a meta call. I won't go into too much detail here, but just as a sideboard example, you could face Dreadnought in a matchup, and then you would probably want to side in all of your blast effects, your Terminate, your Smother, and Chainer's Edict. Not that you are going to have that much mana for the flashback, but it's another removal spell for the 12/12. Definitely want to side out the Skeletal Scryings. It's a 1 black mana and X, and also X life, and if they counter this spell, you still lose all that life. A random discard spell, even though it's instant, doesn't do much, and they usually want to have a full grip to protect their Dreadnought, so they won't go into the 0, 1, or 2 cards in hand as totals. So out of those, being in the red and black colors, there are many cards that could be considered when creating such deck. Mid-range can go many ways, and here are some of the considerations you could do. I have chosen to lower the mana curve of the deck. So 3 is the highest amount of mana you would like to pay for the spells, and that's why you don't see any Blazing Specter, which is very fast and a good creature. You can get in for 2 and get the discard effect right away. No Lavaborn Muse, which is like a vice and a stick, and also no Masticore. I think Masticore could go. I'm just showing here. This is not the most pretty of them all, but very inked. But yeah, lowering the mana curve is something I had to do. If you're not interested in lowering the mana curve, you could consider Dark Ritual as a form of mana accelerant, so you can power up those 4 mana cards. Other than that, I think it's a no-go. Another card I wouldn't include is the Phyrexian Negators. They are too aggressive and come with too much of a cost in a deck that wants to go longer than the first 5 turns, which Midrange wants to. Another thing I've seen done before, and I've done that myself with the Interrogate at least, is including small creatures with abilities that you can use turn after turn. One of these discards cards from your opponent's hand, and one kills non-basic lands. I think if you want to go with the Dwarven Miner, you have to include more hate on their lands to support it. Black and red also makes you able to include a combo in your main deck, and it's not a combo that takes up the whole deck, so it's kind of a mid-range plus combo approach. It's called Dracoblast. You can check out my other videos. You'll find a video deck tech there. Some things are similar, but I would advise you to check it out if you don't know what this deck is all about, but it's mainly these 2 spells you see here. And now to a few more considerations you can do while tweaking this deck. First of all, here we see that the mana in the deck can be changed around. You can go for Tainted Peak. I think it's a huge trap unless you pay only a little bit of red in your deck. There are 4 fetches and 7 basic swamps, so that's 11 sources. I don't think that's enough to support it. You also get these threshold cards like Cabal Pit. You can also include the Barbarian Ring to deal damage. That's also a nice way of doing it. And you can also go for the Resident Port and Wasteland strategy of hindering your opponent's mana situation. When it comes to hindering your opponent's ability to develop their board, you have several options here. You have the Edict effect and the Vendetta effects. They are quite nice for several reasons. You also have the Snuff Out, but I think it's sort of a trap with the few number of basics, just as the Tainted Peak here said before. There are 11 ways of having a swamp in play, and I don't think that's enough. You also have the Plague Spitter, which takes care of so many small critters in the format. We have Withered Wayfarer and the Elves and the Goblins as some of the things it takes care of, but again, 3 mana, and you don't have Dark Ritual. I think it's too slow. And also Spinning Darkness, it can be nice to gain some life, especially if it comes as a surprise. As stated earlier, I chose to go with the Skeletal Scrying as my card draw. I could see swapping it out for Phyrexian Arena if people started to play less main deck answers to enchantments, but right now I don't think it's viable. For the sideboards, there is a ton of cards that you could include. As always, you don't have room for everything. You only have 15 sideboard cards. But to hinder graveyard strategies, you could include Crypts if it's a problem in your local meta. You could also include the Web. It hinders manland strategies, but we are sort of a manland strategy, so I think it's kind of a non-bo in this deck. You could include Forsaken Wastes. It hinders the Angel life gain effect. You could also play with Meltdown to get rid of Mox Diamonds and other problematic artifacts. The problem here is it's a sorcery speed card, and that's not where you want to be. If you want to destroy single targeted artifacts, you could play Overload. I have had success with that prior to this video as well, but it's against Dreadnought it's nice, and other than that, it's not really that impressive. Then we have Dystopia, kills cards that we cannot deal with, kills Oath of Druids, kills Survival of the Fittest, and that's the main use of it. We have Plan of Void, another graveyard strategy hinderer, and Replenish do not like to see this one paired with the main Wretch cards. We have Perish for big green threats that we do not have enough removal for. Usually they have 4 toughness or more, and that's too much. We can play Mechrim if we see a lot of madness in our local meta. I think it's very narrow as a sideboard card. 3 mana is a lot. And you could also play Reanimate if you see that you play against several big creature decks and you just want to cheat one of their threats into your battlefield when you have discarded it from their hand. And that's it for sideboards. Lastly, I've got the Haunting Echoes. This is a banger of a sideboard card if you have the mana to cast it. But since we see a lot of anti-land strategies out there, and since we do not play with the Dark Ritual, I don't think it's even a consideration you should do. But sometime in the future, if we see some kind of change in the meta where we lean away from destroying lands, this could be very brutal. And that's it for the deck tech. If you wonder why I have so much love for this deck, it's because it's the deck I won my first IRL tournament with. If you want to know about that tournament and who I got to know there and who I'm still friends with today because of that tournament, please drop a comment down below and I will see if I could make a video about it. I would love to, and maybe include some pictures as well, because I have a few. But until next time, see you.